So who am I? I have worked with big US public companies. I have worked with a small startup. I've been part of founding a few startups. In 2007, I decided to be an advisor to the first startup here in Stockholm, and I really enjoyed that. And 2014, I decided to go all in and work with startups. And I worked a lot from Sweden, but in the rest of the world. So I worked lots in China and India and US and some in Europe, but mostly the other big continents. And I've seen how difficult it is to go out as a startup and trying to conquer the world. And I wanted to share those experiences. One of the first issues that I met with is really that here in Sweden we have a tradition of lots of meeting places and arenas for investors to meet with startups. But I also found that there is not so many arenas and meeting places and so forth for startups to meet with and start working with corporates. And when I did that, since I wanted to help my startups, I started to identify the right people within large organizations in Sweden. And in 2015 in November, we started with a little network called Innovation Strategy Forum, and we were 7 people, the first time. And now we're actually 50, and it's from all over Sweden, and it's all kinds of big corporations that have 1 or maximum 2 people involved in that. And they all say the same. It's very difficult. They don't know how to really work with startups. And during 2016, we could see more and more interest around this, and several have started very good initiatives around this collaboration. And I wanted to deep dive a bit more in that, and that's how I came up with the idea to really analyze the scene and started to interview people. So we've done like more than 100 interviews with corporates, top manager representatives from corporates, with founders from startups and incubators, and I've talked to Stanford Research Institute, I've talked to Digital Catapult in London, and so forth. So it's quite a substantial feedback around what can we do that has been gathered. I did this together with my friend and a very good startup founder, Pernilla Romslöv. So Pernilla is with us in this work, and she has founded Nox Consulting. And they are, in a few years, they've grown to 220 million Swedish crowns in revenue, so very successful. So she's been like a partner in doing this work. And also one of the first things that we realized is that the legal aspect of the collaboration is difficult. And just as Per said, that you can't come around with these big, heavy agreements and try to get the collaboration started, because that's not going to work, that's not going to fly. And we have Shark Cook Advisors, it's a legal firm that has helped us in the report as well. So let's see if I can move this forward. Right, so we went out and did a few surveys. We went out to big corporates and asked a few questions, and then we went with some other but similar questions to the startups. And here is the result of a question to big corps. Why do you want to start working with startups? What are the main reasons? And I think it's interesting to see that it's really all about joint development, finding disruptive opportunities, and going to market with new business ideas. That's really the majority interest for doing this collaboration. There has been some discussion that some do it only for marketing and so forth, and I think there is an influence of that as well, but the main reasons are really what can we do together, how can we collaborate and finding new ways of doing exciting things. And with the background of the digital era, with all the key enabling technologies and not knowing what to do and what to find, this is important. And then we also, one question we asked the startups is how do you rate the collaboration with corporates in terms of importance? And I think it's quite significant that 44.1% of the startup founders said that it was out of a scale of 10, this was maximum important, it was 10. It's so important to get that. So if they can get business, if they can validate their idea, if they can get help to know how to scale their ideas and their products, that's tremendous value. And if they start with that before they get investors, this will help them a lot, of course. Another survey question we had was, okay, so you as a startup founder, what would you really like to get help with? What is mostly valuable that a corporate can provide you with? And joint product development is very high. Access to clients, go-to-market activities. Investments come as number 3, shared 4th place. So that's of course relevant too, because startups always need more money. But it's not number 1 to get the investment. The number 1 is to get help in the joint product development and access to clients. And if we look at the challenges or barriers to this collaboration, because of course it's difficult, it is by nature difficult. I'm thinking about the Beauty and the Beast, but maybe that's wrong analogy. But if we look at the challenges that startups felt in this collaboration, well, it's of course not so much surprising. The corporates are too slow and don't work agile enough for our needs. Difficult to identify the right contact person. That's a simple thing to declare, right? But it's not done, and it's very difficult from the outside to know how do we even start if we want to get into that corporate. Difficult to understand their internal processes, and the corporate do not prioritize our collaboration. Lack of trust is important. I remember I listened to Peter at Vinnova Innovation Day, and you said you really pinpointed that one as so important that you build trust. Yeah, exactly. Go to the coffee machine and start talking, but really start to trust each other is very important. And just to summarize, I mean, the report is there for download, but some of the more important getting started with, how do you get started on this journey together? And I think it's so important now that all these initiatives that are happening, like this initiative, which I think is so good, start by thinking about what do you really want to accomplish? What are the goals for this, and get an agreement internally. And now this is maybe to the corporates that I'm stating this. Make sure you really understand what is the reason for the collaboration, because then you can schedule and customize and make your program for this initiative. Get top management commitment. Naturally, you always need that when you're doing a change, a transformation, making something happen. You need to evangelize, making everyone aware of internally why are we doing this? Why should they help? Why should they care? It's not just the little startup hub or incubator inside the organization. It's about getting the business units involved and actually start doing joint work together. And then the simple one, identify a startup manager. Create a startup team. What kind of competences should this team really have in order to maximize the opportunity? There are some ideas of what do you do in order to become a startup manager, because of course there are many startups out there. Some have good ideas, some don't, but you want the best one to your organization, and in order to get the best ones, you need to have things that attract them, that makes them feel comfortable and trust you, and so forth. So there are some ideas there. And then I think it's very important to really identify a proof of concept opportunity that you work together on. And if it's not a good idea, fine, fail it fast. But if it's a good idea, how can we do this? How can we invest in this? How can we collaborate on it? And then develop functional legal support. I already touched that subject. Finding the right startups is not easy. You have to be out there, you have to have a network, or you have to use someone that has a network. So this is not easy, but there are a lot of events that you could go to, and you can set up your own events. But make it real, make it connected to something important for your company that you want to solve, or that you want to develop, or you want to investigate. Really ground it in that, or don't do it. You know, it needs to be for real, and not tease the startups, the founders that are putting the life into something. It's for real for them. And then make the corporation a success. You know, don't invest in many. Invest in the few ones that you really are ready to invest in. That's another idea that I think is important. So last but not least, you can download your complimentary copy from teyi.se. One thing that I think could be of interest also is that we identified six different types of collaboration programs. And for each type, we have described a case study with one big corp and a startup in combination. So you can see, you know, how did the corp evaluate the collaboration? How did the startup evaluate? What was difficult? What was good? So, but that's, I think, more or less what I wanted to share with you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take that. It's always very quiet when you ask for questions.
I think there will be a lot of room, plenty of room actually, for questions later on, because we are going to gather Agneta with Johan and Nicholas to a panel discussion.
All right.
At the end.
Yeah,
so,
and I'll be around afterwards too if anyone wants to ask me something.
But yeah, as my contact says, a must read. Definitely. So go download right away.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Agneta.